One.
There you go. It's
Live.
working.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Let's Drone Out. Tonight we are joined by everyone's favourite curry kitten.
Hello.
This show brought to you by HGLRC.
Not sold out to sponsors. He's
And
pretending his
myself,
microphone's broken again.
Stephen. And of course, the ever-present, awesome, Brighton to Life Fly, Jack. Who is busy muting and unmuting himself and pantomiming various actions to the microphone. Hello, Jack. Will you be joining us on the audio side of business? You were a second ago. We can't hear you, mate. We will say when we can hear you.
Either he's acting it really well, or
it's going to be one of those shows where we have to do 3 or 4 starts, isn't it? I just know.
He's gone and kicked those wires again.
Have you been tickling the microphone cord with your toes?
At the end of every show, what Jack likes to do is unplug all the wires and rub them together like that to mix them up and then plug them back in to see what happens.
Is that
It's
good?
fun. Yes.
That's good. Can hear you
We
again.
have you. Hello.
Yes. Hello. I've got some gremlings.
Should we go from the top?
Yeah, maybe. Hello and welcome to Let's Drone Out. Tonight you're joined by everyone's favourite curry kitten,
Hello again.
the man with the moustache, Stephen,
Hello.
and me, Brighton to Life Fly. Sometimes I like to mute myself. I've turned my PC on and it's just a wall of updates. So
You mean you turned it
For all
off?
tricks.
yeah,
People don't
it's
turn
just-
computers off again, do they?
I don't
That's a
know.
weird thing
I
to do.
don't know.
That's the leading cause of computer failure, turning them off and on again.
I was just commenting in the pre-show on the glorious hue that Curry Kitten's sweatshirt is, which is it's pretty impressive. I do like a bright sweatshirt, and
It's
they
very
really pulled
bright.
out the
Again,
stops there.
Jack didn't get the memo about the bright primary colours, and he's gone with black.
Black.
I can wear this if you want. Was that bright enough for you?
No,
It's getting there. Not
it's
quite.
not hurting my eyes enough.
No. What's everyone been up to this week?
I flew a thing.
Ooh.
It wasn't a very
And-
exciting thing.
Oh, with
What
a lead-in
you-
like that, a coy little lead-in, it's got to be an interesting thing, surely.
It's not. It was one of those. Where is it? It's over there somewhere. It was one of those like it's not a Mavic, but we're saying it works as well as a Mavic. Honest governor, could you
In a
test it
box
for me?
with suspiciously similar cover art to the Mavic.
Yes, except this one is £399, which
Oh.
is about £19 less than the Mini Air 2, which is a very good quad. And this one had promise when I started it. Only had a 2-axis gimbal. It had its what is Jack doing? It had its yaw fixed by EIS, and I started flying it. And I thought that's quite good. It's doing quite well. But as I flew it higher and further out, the gimbal's on sort of this little shock mounting, and it seems like a tiny bit of wind can induce the vibrations there. So on the sides of the screen, you had this action going on, which was a bit of a
that's not
shame. And
So you think spend the extra 20 quid? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, very much so. And it also had, you know, that when you're sort of coming to land, you use like, less stick because you're like, oh, I just need to make a little adjustment, bring it down. When I just did a little adjustment, this thing went woof like that, and then it leveled itself. So I'm trying to come down on my landing mat, and I'm only a couple of feet ahead, and I'm swinging this thing around, overcorrecting it everywhere because it doesn't seem to have good proportional controls. It's like tiny little bit. Oh! But other than that,
But it is nonetheless reassuringly expensive.
reassuring. Well, overpriced, I would say. I have to say, I cannot recommend this. If you're looking for something like this, spend extra £19,
Yeah.
and you'll be happier.
if you want a floating camera, you do need to be really good to beat the DJI stuff, right? That is
the thing is that the
stakes
things
for
I've
me.
tested before, they've been like 100, 200 pounds, and
Yeah.
for that you give them a little bit of leeway.
Take a punt.
It's like, this flies okay if you're just getting into it, you're a beginner, you're flying it around, you want to take a picture of yourself, it's fine. But when it's the same price, it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, it's got to have a vastly better camera, or be much faster, or something that the DJI stuff can't do. It sounds like they haven't really hit on some unique point.
Yeah.
If you were going to buy it, what would you be buying it for that a Mavic couldn't do?
Nothing. There's no reason, unless you want to switch the engines off and hurt somebody, because it weighs about 600 grams. So that's the only advantage.
So it's heavier, so it could inflict more damage. Okay.
It can inflict more damage and involve having to use a license instead of the 249 gram thing that the DJI can do.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, a quad from maybe 2017 that inadvertently found its way onto the market in 2023.
Yes, essentially. As I said, the video transmission is not bad. It got out to a kilometre, although it was starting to. Well, you can always tell it's starting to go bad because you say yaw and you expect it to be smooth, and it's like nothing's happening, and it goes dun, dun, dun. It's like that. So.
Yeah. Well, wait for the sales. Perhaps maybe it'll be 150 quid special after release.
150 quid special. You might give it a punt. But I was just about ready to go out with my Taro 129 that I've put my Mega Ultra Rush FPV Max Solo into, 2.5 watts of power, when I found out I needed to redesign my antenna holder. And what I found is my Fusion 360 free license, which I thought was a free license, now is a free license only for 3 years, and it's expired. So I've done this design and it won't let me save it or print it. So it's just sat there on my screen taunting me, and I can't do anything with it, which is annoying. So I'm going to have to very quickly choose something new.
Quick poll of the chat for your favorite free-to-use 3D modeling packages if you want to do some serious little mounts.
What are people using, which is a bit like Fusion 360? So you've got the, what's it called, parametric modeling. So you can change your dimensions back several steps and it all works. Go, chat. Waiting. Time passes.
Unfortunately, no suggestions from me. I just grab stuff off Thingiverse and occasionally scale it a little.
This would be people saying, I just print out a square and I whittle it down with a knife or something.
Yeah, unfortunately, my back is not much better. I am on some painkillers still. But, yeah, it's driving me crazy. It's managing to pinch a nerve, so it just makes my arm throb. The best position appears to be the one that I've currently got it in, which is kind of doesn't really allow for me to use the keyboard, but I can just about sit comfortably at the desk this way.
Yeah. The trouble is with Fusion 360 is it's the best and nothing is like it. No one's made anything.
I suppose except for SolidWorks, which is even more expensive.
I hear a lot of people talk about Fusion 360.
Pirate SolidWorks.
Pirate SolidWorks, well, that sounds...
Didn't you say you were using Fusion 360 and the free version just stopped working? So
yeah, look, I will
has a free version.
I will show you my screen of what it looks like. Share a screen. Take the window. Fusion 360. Here is my lovely part. What I done modelled. Awesome. And it took me ages to work out how to do this angle from the thing.
You can't save the thing.
Up here it says expired, subscribe now. And if I try and do anything, save, no. Export, no. Nothing, no. Can't do nothing.
Cruel and unusual.
So
it looks very nice and neat model as well. That's a crying shame.
How are you going to print it?
Wait,
I can't. I'm screwed.
I suppose you could buy a 1 month subscription and then find something else after this, but that's
it's far too expensive. If you're not like doing this professionally, it's like super pricey. It's like, it's 50-something quid a month or something.
50 a month?
Yeah, it's really expensive.
That's ludicrous, because you might only use it maybe once a month.
Yeah, Matey Lab's saying he reckons it can be activated,
Outrageous.
but I can't.
But he's going to lose
find
his
it.
model. That's the trouble.
No, I've had it before where it's expired. They used to issue you like a year's license, and then you go and say this is expired, and you say reset it, and because you have to log in to do it, it sort of updates itself, and it's like, okay, all sorted. But this is not working at all. Don't know.
Ooh. What about you, Jack?
If
What have
not,
you been up to?
I'll whittle it.
Not much. What have I been up to? I'm literally waiting on hardware for this, for the back, and that's all together. I've dared look at Oscar Lang's tuning Betaflight guide, and I am deeply concerned by it. And that's about it, really. I've just kind of been shipping stuff out, and that's it, really. I haven't flown. The first, like, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday looked amazing. They were like blue skies. It was sunny. It was a bit breezy Wednesday, and then today, my first day off, it's just grey and crap. So I went into town. Plus, I've broke my glasses, so I'm on my like backup old prescription. So I had to go into town, and I was like, "Can you fix my glasses?" They're like, "Nope, the insurance only covers a year. Buy new ones." So I spent all my money on glasses. So sucks balls. Yeah, not much really.
That's
Electronics wise, I just need to clear my bench, really, and I'm just waiting on standoffs and screws from AliExpress.
I had some of those arrive. Almost a segue. Got some nice sky blue hex standoffs from Ali. Some
Nice.
M3 ones for my little build with the walk snail and an ET5 frame. Eventually, when my arms stop hurting me, I'm gonna put together an ultralight with this is with the Viper Light canopy from Sugar K. It's gonna have an F7 in there and a walk snail 1S board running off the healthy 5-volt back in there. See how that goes.
Hey Cole, why aren't you here, you little
Indeed
bugger?
And toys of the week as well.
What has Stephen bought this week?
What bale of crap have we got? I've lost it. Where are you? There you are, underneath everything else. I wanted a nice small AM32 ESC, so I found one of these SkyStars 20 mils, and it was running. I thought it was running an STM32 that I could just flash, but it's not. It's a Giga Devices one. So I went down another rabbit hole that involved getting 2 ST-Link adapters, using one ST-Link adapter to flash the other ST-Link adapter, which I've now labeled as CMSys DAP, a generic programming adapter, and then use that guy to flash the ESC bootloader. Which worked in the end, but it was just like kind of ESC flashing hopscotch with far too many steps. But yeah, got there in the end. Chatted a bit with Style Sucks over on escconfigurator.com because I found a few bugs in that when I was flashing, and I was going to put it in this guy. This is a 4-inch that currently has like a 40 amp BL Heli ESC, and I was going to put an AM32 one in there just to compare it. And I was also not sure about the motors because I have been pushing those rather fast and hard on 5S when they're not really supposed to. So I have some RCM power motors that I might put in something as well. We'll see how that goes. It's the general tinkerings this week. Oh, I'm trying to build stuff with Betaflight as well, trying to make sense of the new build system, which has proven complex.
There's another segue. I just remembered we had a discussion about Betaflight 4.4, didn't we? Where I discovered weird things or different things about how the OSD worked. Which was, I was coming over. This is this same quad I'm trying to work with, and it was on 403. And on 403, I plug in the USB, and it comes up with the OSD page, and I can update the fonts. I can change the OSD around. Then I can plug in a battery and check it all works, all good. On 4.4, what I was doing is plugging it in, expecting to get that same stuff, and it was saying no OSD chip detected. And then I plugged in the battery, and still nothing happened. And what we found out after opening up an issue and then finding stuff out is you have to plug the battery in, then plug the USB in, and then it basically scans for the hardware and says, "Oh yeah, you've got an OSD chip," and then it's all good. But if you do it the other way around, or just have the USB plugged in, it doesn't work. And Stephen was telling me this is because previously it was hard coded. It was just like, "Oh yeah, you got an OSD chip. Change what you like." And when
assumes
you
every single board has an OSD chip. The weird thing is, I've never seen a board that does what Curry's, because I've got a whole bunch of analog quads, and I flashed them, most of them, to 4.4, and I haven't seen one that doesn't bring up the OSD on USB. But somehow, I guess Curry's board, the OSD chip isn't connected to the USB power; it's only connected to the LiPo power, which is
really weird, because the
weird.
The GPS and the receiver comes up as soon as I plug USB in as well. So you're thinking, oh, it's powering everything else up on 5 volts, but not the OSD chip, which is really weird.
Special.
And obviously, I've never seen it before, but that's because it would have assumed it was there beforehand, which is odd.
Anyway, lesson learned, I guess. Yeah, there's probably some feedback we can make. The trouble is, it's not a real Matec board. It's pretending to be like a Matec F405. As Caroline probably knows, there's a whole load of clones floating around for Matec boards. Everyone just calls their board a Matec board or uses the target, and then butchers the hardware and makes it slightly awkwardly different to the Matec hardware, so it's not entirely compatible. And people have finally sort of got annoyed with there being 15 different variants of this one original board. And everything's sort of been broken on all of the clones. Just make sure the original board works, and then let the clone manufacturers fight it out amongst themselves.
Yeah, Caroline's question is: does Wayne's FC have switchable VTX power, maybe affecting the OSD chip? I was actually I had nothing plugged in when I first started using this, and the board itself doesn't have a switchable VTX power. Obviously, the VTX does, but yeah, when I was doing this, I was trying it with like nothing plugged in, and then I had the VTX in, and then that was on pit mode, and then it was all very weird. Yeah,
super
interesting.
Weird. A lot of stuff has been changed, though. There's been a lot of hoops to jump through to.
Yeah, because what you're saying about like everybody says it had a Matex board. If you're coming from a previous early 4 version, it's the same old problem. It's like, if you look at version, here is your board, it uses this, so you go and say update it, and it's like, oh, that doesn't exist anymore, I wonder what it changed to. And there's like this many Matec boards, and you're like, let's try this one. So originally I chatted to you because I thought I'm using the wrong firmware here, I must not know something, but it wasn't that was just a red herring.
Well, there was the bit about the gyro, and you were using the wrong firmware when the gyro didn't appear, but as soon as the gyro was working, you were on the right firmware. And after that,
I mean, we did keep trying them. We tried 3 different firmwares just to see what would happen. It's like, no, that one's got worse. It thinks it's got a completely different gyro. It doesn't exist.
Everyone's also being... So there's the Matec F405 STD that you've got there, the standard one. And then
I'm using the standard -clone firmware at the moment.
Yeah. So
it was the standard that didn't work.
But that was the original board that they copied. The other one they copied is the F411 RX. So all of the old little boards with the SPI FR Sky receivers on, they all cloned the Matec F411 RX. So there's millions of those out there as well.
This used to be the case with you remember the the F3 SP Racing versions? There used to be millions of copies of those. and then everything became an omnibus, and that was the big copy. And now the Maytech copies are hanging around. I guess it's just flavour of the month.
Yeah, the X Racer or whatever. Like, oh man, yeah, the copies that just did not work.
Well, it's fine if a lot of them do work, but they don't copy it perfectly. If they'd actually copied it item for item, the entire bill of materials the same, it'd be fine. But they clone stuff, and then they'll change the gyro from like an MPU 6000 to like a BMI 270, and then still use the same target. And if you look at the original, there was never a version of it that used a BMI 270. So when you go and actually publish a spec that deals just for the original board, you go ask the manufacturer, right, what's your bill of materials for this? And they tell you, and you code all of that in. And then someone comes along with a clone board that has a completely different hardware bill of materials, and it doesn't work. And then they're like, oh, well, your software's wrong. Actually, no, because we go to the manufacturer and ask them specifically like what they have on their boards. But we don't know who's been cloning it, because half the time the clone manufacturers don't even respond to an email or anything. They're dead silent. So it's just trial and error to figure it out.
What about that guy that was extorting everyone, being like, if you want our board to be supported by
that seems to have been taken
me.
care of. Yeah, hopefully that's not a problem anymore. It's looking a bit dicey for a while. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of new CPU stuff that's slowly moving forward. It's looking very promising, and hopefully all this F411 stuff where it was dicey and it didn't quite work fast enough, and you're balancing the speed of the OSD with the speed of the freaking SPI receiver, and it was just cutting out all the time. Hopefully that's going to be a thing of the past, and people get something that's even cheaper than that but is way more powerful. So that's promising. Fingers crossed.
We can only hope.
In my other catalogue of errors, I also tried using Betaflight connecting over the ELRS Wi-Fi to the configurator, which didn't quite work. I tried it on my tablet, and to be fair, I only tried it on like one quad, and it came up. It found the port, but then came up with like this error about multi-weave version null, type null. So I have to look at that.
That's special.
That doesn't sound right, does it? No,
that doesn't sound right.
So I was mostly having fun saying, oh, this has got wrong. This has gone wrong. This has also gone wrong. Let's try and fix it. Fun times.
Oh, dear. Well, sorry we've been struggling. I had some lovely misty days out here that were quite fun. Did a bunch of flying through the kind of spooky mist. That's always quite a giggle.
That's cool. Could you get up above it and sort of look down?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's couldn't get totally above the mist because I'd have to fly to like 500 meters high, I think. But yeah, popped up to
on those perfect days. I've seen a video. I think Caroline's had a video like this where I think he's maybe been on top of a hill and the mist has been sort of lying down the hill, and you can just see the buildings.
Oh, right,
poking out over the
if
top
you've
of it,
got a hill, I'm sure you can do that. I'm in London where it's dead flat, so there's not really that discontinuity.
You sometimes see it around Canary Wharf, but again, you're frowned on flying around there for some reason. People don't like it. They have a real point of view about it. Yeah.
I also did a bit of 3D printing on a little toothpick as well. A little kind of, I think it's about 41 grams. Really cute little thing with that's an all-in-one, 5-in-1 or whatever they call it, with your Express LRS, Open VTX, ESCs, flight controller. It's just got a camera plug and 4 motor plugs on it, and that's it, done. That's been a lot of fun because it does 4 minutes on a 380 Mar 2S. It just flies forever. So lots of just weaving around stuff in the park. Don't have to go out and get into the mud and anything. You can just sort of sit on a park bench and go around all the dry bits. That's quite nice.
It's quite cool.
Yeah, I've been doing some 3D printing for Tony, some ESC holders, So soon I will be dealing with him and his goddamn X-Class. And I've messaged him and been like, you need to buy this. What about this? Doesn't want to buy any of it. Wants to buy it when it comes to it.
So is he rebuilding it? I thought he rebuilt
building
it
a
onto
new
12S. Oh, okay. So he's keeping the
Yeah.
old one at 6S and he's building a new 12S.
I believe so, yeah.
Or was it 8S, the old one, I think?
Fossil stuff. Yeah, sent him some new gear, so
Interesting.
yeah. So I've been doing a bit of printing and trying to decipher the dyslexic moronness of Tony. Can you print me 12 of these? Why do you need 12? You've only got 4 ESCs.
Oh, yeah. I've seen some awesome prints for quads of that size. So I think there's a guy called Noisy Boy, and he's got some absolute monster builds that he does, big 13-inch prop stuff. And just some fantastic 3D prints where I think one is draped in like purple tentacles or something. Just absolutely nuts.
I suppose when things are a bit bigger and have real lifting power, you can get a little bit more creative and fun with.
Got a couple of reels of TPU on there and not notice. Let me just see if I can get the picture. But yeah, it's got some kind of Kraken theme thing that was cracking up a while back.
That's cool. So, what about Stephen? We have to ask every week. What's the plane situation?
Oh, the plane situation is Stephen is not a happy man and has not got the mental energy to deal with non-quad related stuff. He's just about traipsing out the house and flying a couple of packs on a little micro around the park, and certainly not up for doing lots of soldering and testing stuff.
Most of the wing stuff just plugs together.
I mean, I could just smash it into pieces and throw it in the bin and be like, well, it's done now. But I was going to try and do it properly.
It'll just buff out. Don't worry.
Let me see if I can. I found this giant quad. Let's see if I can put this over somewhere here and play. It's one of these shorts where people film it vertically because they're monsters. And,
animals.
Yeah, that's the only way shorts work. They don't let you film it any other way.
It's just
crazy.
Oh, it's absolutely horrible.
It's the YouTube version of this TikTok thing.
It's just awful, though.
It's very true.
I want to do that. Okay. Anyway,
how's the Tesla, by the way?
It's okay. It hasn't tried to kill me lately, and it hasn't, had any big problems.
You see that? It's an absolute monster.
Big bucket of wipes. Is that for jerking off?
I imagine it probably is, yeah.
I expect you have to celebrate after you've done a big build like that.
Definitely, because of the left-handed mouseness.
It's a bit crazy.
He's a beast.
I feel he should screw those props in properly. It looks like they're just push-fitted at the moment. That can't be right. Not on that size.
Might cause some issues. You never know. Could be a problem.
I think so. Jack, what are you going to build next? What are you going to do next? What's everybody's plans? Because obviously we haven't done that much.
I'm going to move this to my 4S rig, which is the KISS ESCs, because obviously I'm not done torturing myself. I want to finish.
That's still a thing, are they? Those KISS things?
Yeah, I want to finish this beta flight build, but I'm just waiting for standoffs. And that's a bit of a long story.
What standoffs do you need?
I think they're 5 mil tall. I think
5 mil standoff. That's really short.
I know.
It's more of a nut, isn't it? Rather than a standoff.
M3.
Yeah. I don't know. It actually looks taller than that. I might be chatting shit. Hang on. Let me measure.
I have a box of M3 hardware right behind me. That's why I asked. We can now do a riveting podcast while Stephen gets the calipers out to measure which standoffs are in fact M3. Oh my word, the audio listeners are going to love this.
I know.
I'm now opening a box with some digital calipers.
We're having a caliper off.
Oh.
I have a selection of M3 mounting hardware in front of me. Some of it is aluminium, some of it is plastic. I will be looking for a 6mm part. Or
10 mil.
10 mil.
You could just cut that in half. Sorry, is that the actual size you want?
Yeah, 10 mil.
Oh, you're only, that sounds like a Tony mistake.
I didn't know off the top of my head. I did say, but I measured it.
Right, so that looks like an 8mm I've got there. Not that one.
That's it.
10mm. Do you want plastic or aluminium?
Aluminium if you got it.
All right, I might have to get the other box out. There's a
That's
10mm
right.
plastic. I've got 10mm in
got
black nylon.
Yeah, I've got 10 mil white nylon on there, but it's meant to be holding the antenna, so it will probably break off. That'll be fine. And I ordered a load of hardened aluminium screws from AliExpress, and they showed up today. And then I've realised that the listing on Inbox RC didn't include the 16 mil one, so I've just ordered those. It's
Not
fine.
from AliExpress again.
Yeah.
Is that like another 40 days then?
Yeah,
well,
probably.
It's about 10% of the cost of buying them in the UK. That's the trouble. I've seen some ludicrous prices on bolts in the UK. You can get any size bolt in the UK, but sometimes it's like £8 or £9 for a single bolt.
That seems expensive. Normally, when I'm like, I want 5 of one screw or 10 or something, I go onto eBay and it seems reasonable. And there's like 5-pack for £1, and then get 20 for like £1.20 or something. So you just, I'll just have lots of them.
Yeah, that's what I do. I've got a whole load of little tidies with M3 and M2 hardware. Just keep it forever now. Sorted.
Cool.
Yeah, I tried to buy
I'll be back.
titanium screws on AliExpress, and I ended up with some sort of cheese metal a while ago, so I'd advise not doing that. I'm pretty sure they're not titanium because the head snapped off when I tried to tighten them. I think titanium's not renowned for being the strength of, say, cheddar.
I think that's just a brand name they came up with.
Yeah.
Like it's
Special
amazing
titanium strength.
how much graphite stuff there is, even though it's not. Or graphene, isn't it?
Graphene batteries, yeah.
Yeah.
Those old Turnigy batteries that were about 30C were graphene.
Graphene. It's amazing.
Puff up after 3 flights, but they were totally graphene. They were definitely advanced battery technology.
That's what it was. Now, didn't you have new goggles you were showing us? Or was these not new goggles?
Someone kindly hooked me up with a set of the V2 goggles. So I'm going to be obtaining an O3 Air unit now.
Now, just to get this right, because I got it wrong before. In DJI, there's the DJI V2, and then there's the DJI Goggle 2, which is the new one, which is the one
naming.
You've got,
Just about everything about DJI, as you might realize from the camera platforms, is basically customer hostile. So that includes the naming conventions. You've got the DJI FPV system, which is the first version. Then you've got the DJI FPV V2, and then you've got the DJI Goggles 2. And the Goggles 2 are completely different from the Goggles V2. Those are two entirely different product lines with different functionality and different technical specifications.
And these are the ones that work with the new O3 unit.
Well, they both work with the O3 unit, but these work in H.264 mode, and the new ones work in H.265. So it's like it works with O3, but it's a slightly like degraded range, but it'll do the job.
Oh, okay.
But it does do
So
120 FPS, and the new ones only do 100 FPS. Like I say, customer hostile, but it'll work. And I'm immensely grateful for having a shot. Now I've got to find somewhere that sells a cheap O3 unit. I was just getting used to the declining prices of the original DJI Air units that were getting down to sort of £85, and the O3s are over 200. So
I feel
think
you've got a bit of
carefully
an
about what I
oxymoron
do.
there, combining the words cheap and O3 unit. As a non-DJI user, even I know that the new units are very expensive, aren't they?
Yeah. So I think I'll get one and give it a shot and see what it's like, because it's kind of akin to buying a GoPro. It's going to do the image stabilization, it's going to do the FPV feed, and it does the onboard recording, all that guff, all in one, which is nice. But it's going to be heavy, and it's going to take a whole bunch of power. So I've been running them off the onboard BECs. A lot of the boards I've got have a 10-volt BEC. That 10-volt BEC is often good for 1.5, maybe 2 amps. Some of the quads I've got have an 8-volt BEC that's good for 2 amps. And apparently the O3 is pulling round about kind of 17, 18 watts max. So that's going to be too much for a 2 amp 8-volt BEC, because you've got that simple equation. Power is volts times amps, right? That's watts. So 8 volts by 2 amps, that's going to give me 16 watts, which might be flattened by the O3 Air unit if I turn on all the recording and stabilization functionality and then run out to maximum range. So, a bit worried about that. We shall see.
Do they have to run off a certain voltage, or can they just go straight into the LiPo if you need to?
It could run off the battery, but then you've got the problem of you get a prop strike and you get some back EMF. That's now going to go back through the motors into the ESC and potentially spike back through that battery connection.
So not much protection there.
Yeah, it could just knacker your 200 quid air unit.
Ooh, that's a
which
pain.
it's not really what you want. So yeah, scratching my head. And it basically means I've got to look at all the spec sheets for my flight controllers and find the one that's got the beefiest BEC and put it on that.
Now, a vague change of subject here, but we touched on it last week, and since that time, I have noticed that every time I accidentally go to YouTube or Facebook, I'm confronted by loads of now I don't know the word, toroidal prop things. What's the word I'm looking for here? Toroidal props seems to have gone very much flavour of the month. So every time I click on YouTube, there's a new person experimenting with them, or on Facebook, there's everybody in their dog is playing with them. And I have to admit, I haven't watched a single video yet because it was upsetting me how many are there. Has anybody in the chat messed with them? Have you seen any decent stuff from them? Are these the promise
and
of
for our audio
quiet...
listeners, again, people say toroidal, but it's almost a little bit of a confusing explanation, because it's not what I think of as a torus, which is more a donut. These are kind of a cylinder, but squished sideways, so that the cylinder is now, instead of vertical, leaning to one side. So there's an advancing edge, which is one edge of the prop, and then the opposite face of the cylinder forms another edge that's also tilted in the same direction. So the cylinder basically,
I suppose you would say
two edges.
The cylinder gets squashed and then twisted and done 3 times round, and that's your prop. But I still haven't looked at an actual video to see if there's any evidence. It just seems like people have grabbed hold of it, like it's the new thing. It's the only way to fly a quad.
And I think it was just a slow news week phenomenon, buoyed up by the fact that this came out of MIT, who clearly know what they're doing. But then everyone's gone and tried to replicate that on a 3D printer. And there's a very good reason why we're not sitting here thinking, I don't need to buy props, I've got a 3D printer. Because when you 3D print stuff like propellers, it comes out crap. It's not suited for that. And so people are drawing all these results, comparing the 3D printed propellers to injection molded propellers and going, oh, well, it's not like this, it doesn't compare well in that regard. And it's kind of meaningless, because unless they'd taken a 3D printed traditional wing prop and then compared it with a 3D printed toroidal prop, then there's like no control, right? You've got completely different manufacturing process and materials on each of the props, as well as a different shape. So it's really hard to draw any conclusions from what people have done so far, I think.
Yes, but you know, if you're out there listening, content creators and people doing it, could you just stop? Because my feed's full up of crap and I'm a bit fed up with it.
Well,
Wait until some manufacturer actually produces a prop, and then you can test it properly.
well, good luck. I've been asking people to stop making so many Cinewhoops for several years now, and hasn't got anywhere.
I still don't understand why cine whips are a thing. I kept explaining, because I reviewed a lot of them, saying, look, this is a very specific thing. If you're making commercial videos and you need to fly around people, this is something you might use. Otherwise, they don't fly very well. They're very noisy, and you don't gain any benefit from the fact that they might not break as much if you crash them. Just get a
It's
regular
like people getting a giant
quad.
DSLR as their first camera. Like, no, you want to start moderate your expectations a little bit. Start with something that lets you learn how to actually consider what makes a good photo, rather than just go for one specific tool.
Jack's back. Hello.
Hello, you're right.
Yeah,
Sorry. Right.
that's right.
I did
I was
say
going to say as well. I was just going to say, we mentioned GoPros there. I've had a lot of, again, lots of stuff popping up in my feed with people getting really wound up with GoPros and moving over to something else, because GoPros tend to
They keep getting
to go
heavier
wrong a
and more
lot.
expensive.
They keep overheating, and see, I thought when I went skiing it would be good, because I thought it'd keep my GoPro cool, and it did the opposite. It turned on for 6
Didn't
seconds
work.
and then said it was out of battery. Yeah, completely failed.
You needed your lipo warmer.
Yeah, I had to then keep my GoPro inside my pocket, turn it on inside my pocket, and then try and mount it on my head whilst taking off my gloves whilst it was
So your
minus
holiday
30,
footage
which
is
didn't do
lots
so
of
well.
excellent shots of the inside of your pocket, stopping shortly afterwards the instant it got out into the cold.
Yeah, but it seems I've seen lots of piss take videos where someone's doing skiing and they're like, oh, such an epic line, this is going to be beep 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 beep, and that's that nasty noise of like, what the hell's just gone wrong with my GoPro.
Yeah. I've had a
But
bunch of cameras. I've never really been impressed by the light handling, because when you're skiing, you've just got so much reflected light. A lot of the footage that I've taken with phones and with action cameras has just been a haze of white with a couple of black dots, and you can't really tell whether they're above you or below you. It's just white out with a couple of people.
Yeah, if you don't get the sun on it, you've got absolutely no contrast whatsoever.
You're like, wow, there's this epic hill I was going down. You can't even tell it's a slope. It's just white.
No, it's just white. You're moving through some whiteness. It can't be seen.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's interesting that people are getting miffed with GoPro, and then we're also seeing a bit kind of an advancement on the split cameras, because I was all in on split cameras a while ago. Like, oh, I can have a so-so FPV camera, but a pretty decent action cam that was beating the likes of the old Mobius and things like that. And it feels like the O3 has, made it a really strong push in that direction.
Yeah,
I suppose it is
fit.
Decent footage, isn't it?
Well, it's as good as the I think Cole's got one, the what's it, the Action 2? The footage looks a lot like that in terms of the contrast, the colors.
No, he's got a 11 mini.
Oh, who's it who had the Action? Was it? Oh no, sorry, Failsafe, I think, might have been the one who had that.
Oh, is that where he was talking about having to pour water on it to try and cool it down?
Yeah.
That's the common problem.
I don't think that works with the O3A unit. I think that's not recommended.
Give it a try. Yeah, but I did notice my GoPro 2, which was the first GoPro I got, still going strong, seemed to work fairly faultlessly, perfectly. Then I got a GoPro 4, which was generally okay, but then it started having SD card reader problems.
They're
And
fragile.
I remember,
Fuck the 4s.
I remember getting that while snorkeling, and it's like, well, I can't go and take the frigging battery out and try and sort this out. I'm under the water right now. And then the 7 wasn't too bad, but yeah, the 10, it had some lockups, which is again take battery out and put it in. And the 10 has been pretty bad for either overheating or being too cold. But it can't decide. It can't just find that just right attitude, unfortunately.
I know.
I've got an 8. I use it very rarely. I drag it out kind of when we're at events and stuff like that. If I'm flying by myself, don't really want to carry the weight. I think that's the deciding factor for me. The quad feels sluggish. It doesn't behave the same. I'm used to flying it without the weight of the GoPro. When I put the GoPro on, it's like, okay, I'm going to do extra slow cinematic flying now because it just feels leaden. It feels like I'm hauling that GoPro around on it.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty screwed come this summer because I've got rid of both my 7s and I sold my Session 4 as well, which was the idiot cam, strap it to anything sort of.
What about one of these thumbs? They seem to have got an audience. People seem to be enjoying them.
Well, not Curry. Curry was like, how the hell do you, level it or whatever?
Didn't you get there in the end, though? Was that the 4K one?
That's the 4K one. They've redone it since, so the lens has changed or something. But yeah, the difference is the amount of effort it takes. When you put a GoPro and you put it in hyper smooth, you can pretty much just fly it around quite casually. You don't need to do any more stabilization. The footage that comes off is good.
When you can post the video that day, can't you, Jack? You can just take that footage and you can post it that day because you don't need to do anything in gyro flow or. You see, I'm not sure this argument works for Jack because he's going to sit on that footage for 2 to 3 years minimum,
and then delete it or lose the
gyro flow, which might take
forward
hour.
Everything to Cole. He's the one dealing with it. He's the one bringing it.
Responsible adult.
Yeah, that's why I have him. He's awesome.
I find gyro flow a lot of work. I don't like it. Although I do like the form factor of this. I might put it on my next plane. I need to fly some planes because
What's the weight on that little guy?
Not much. I haven't got some scales around here, but it's like
under 50 grams
maybe. It's definitely under 50, like 20 maybe. It's like, but it seems in a bit where there's less general vibration, like in a plane, it might do a little bit better and might take less effort to sort out and stuff. But we forget, of course, that we came from the world of like the little 808C cameras and the Mobiuses, which didn't have any sort of stabilization. You just shook around and it's like, well, that's quite good, isn't it? Look, I've got HD video from my plane. And now it's like, oh no, look, it's got a little bit of wobble in it. That's no good. Throw it away, burn it.
And gyro flow, I'm sure, will get easier and easier as time goes on because half the battle is just turning the little manual sliders and dials into presets and taking out the user's hands.
Do they still sell Mobiuses? Because I kind of miss those.
I don't know. You can probably still find. I mean, the fact you can still buy KK2 must mean there's Mobiuses out there. Probably on AliExpress. I'm sure they're out somewhere. I'm sure you can still get an 808 camera. I've still got one because I hollowed out a bit of one of my wings so I could put an 808 camera in there, and it still works. It looks muddy and a bit crap. But still, good old 720-60 still works.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow. But yeah, I saw like the people that were talking about action cameras have turned to the Insta360 X3, is it? Which is a proper 360 cam, which you can then like stabilize in post nice and easily. But it didn't seem to have the right form factor to put on a flying thing.
That was the one with the interchangeable bits where you just had a lot of clipped together pieces.
No, this is more. let me find a picture of this. This is more a sort of it's like a big capsule. I think is the best way of looking at it.
Okay. I did enjoy the Insta360 software. There's an Insta360 Studio, and I think their stuff does work with GyroFlow as well. But the studio that they've got, it kind of worked first time, very little tweaking. I've used that Smo 4K a bunch of times, and I think like 90% of the time, it's just, select the start, select the end, choose how wide you want the view to be and the output footage, click stabilize, go, and that's it. Just does it.
This is what we're looking at.
Shape.
It is a weird shape, isn't it? Of course, people don't have to think about the shape because it's a 360 cam. It doesn't matter if you're holding it or you've got it on a stick. But in terms of getting it into
for a quad,
in terms of getting it into a quad, of course, it's very difficult. But I am attracted by the fact you can do so much in post. I quite like those pictures of quads, like you've got quad footage flying along, and then you've got the quad and stuff, and you don't have to think about the angle.
Yeah,
I think it's quite nice, but it's not cheap. It's like
it's just if you think about it, if you mount that on a quad, then if you're going under any obstacles, the lens is so exposed.
But it does get it above the battery, because if you remember, like when Andy sees like 360 thing, you'd like scroll to the back of it and you'd just see battery.
Well, I mean,
so you had like a lovely forward facing image. The sides would have that weird sort of, it wouldn't quite mesh together, but it's probably better now.
If you're filming a quad though, do you really want to like show people all your wiring and stuff? Surely you want to just show them the area you're flying through rather than like, here's my quad.
Well,
it's
like
something to mix it up, I think. Puts it in, and I thought the bullet time adapter was hilarious. It's just like, look, watch us. It's just the world's stupidest accessory.
Straight into the water.
Useful for clips of about half a second maximum duration. You can see that they're not holding on to those shots because after you've been round the person once, you're just going to feel sick, aren't you, if you carry on watching that?
Yeah, well, that's why it's only half a turn.
Yeah, vomit-inducing.
Caroline says, I flew my Runcam HD Pro on Tuesday, forgot the ND filters and got way too much jello in the video. Gyroflow did a great job of stabilizing the video. My argument is if I'm going to pick up a new camera, I kind of want it to work with Gyroflow, or if Cole desperately wants
I'm kind of the opposite. If I'm picking up a new camera, I want it to not be necessary to dive into something like Gyroflow. I just want it to be stable.
Yeah,
that would be better for me. It's too much effort.
What I'm more sort of thing is if it's available and I want it, or I'd rather have it and not need it.
Yeah.
Well, have the stabilization available so you can think, oh yeah, I'll just tidy that up a little bit.
Yeah, always.
And it's nice to be able to do it after the fact, because you turn off the stabilization and by default you've got the whole lens. Because if you turn on the stabilization, you're just cropping in. So after the fact, you have that wider frame available to you, and you can choose how narrow you want to go in. But yeah, it looks like 85 quid for the Runcam Pro HD, which for a 4K action camera, a couple of years ago, that would have been just incredible.
Impossible.
Yeah. They're doing 4K 120? No, 4K 30. Still, that's pretty good.
Who got sued by Polaroid, apparently?
Who did?
Polaroid. This is following on from a post above about GoPro threatening Runcam.
I remember GoPro threatened Runcam because the dimensions of their cube was exactly the same as the Session.
So Numbskull's comment from that follows on from Tailspin. So he says that Runcam did it, that GoPro sued Runcam because they were sued by Polaroid.
Oh, that's right. Polaroid bought out a cube camera as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
It's like the fact you can say, oh, we invented the cube, it's our product now, is slightly ridiculous.
Well, I found out now that the reason I can't control my volume easily on my phone, apparently Sonos have claimed that they've patented the idea of having a volume control for multiple rooms, and no one else is able to implement a volume control that shows multiple rooms. It's just F off. Like, patents are so terrible, just ruining everything.
I feel patents are fine if they're a proper invention, but not if they're something fairly obvious.
Yeah, it's
Like
just used to say,
having
like,
multi-room
we own
volume.
this market and we don't want to compete with anyone. That seems to be what patents are used for. I would rather we didn't have to actually compete with anyone, because, you know, we're making a lot of money here, so we're just going to use these patents to tell everyone else to go away. It kind of sucks.
Annoying. By the
Hang
way,
on,
I meant to ask Stephen. I'm going back to your DJI goggles again. Are you noticing the difference between 60 and 120 in frames per second? Because when I play a game at 60 frames per second and the same game on 120 frames per second, quite honestly, I would find it very hard to tell unless I really stared and really concentrated hard.
Can I ask you a question? Can you tell the difference
Please do.
between 50 and 60 hertz?
Well, it depends if you've got that border down the bottom.
Yeah.
Got an extra 2-3 lines on your OSD.
We
That's how
answered
you
it
know
with
the
a PAL
difference,
question.
right? Yeah, your NTSC, you've got like a much bigger OSD, and if you've got slightly smaller text, that means it's PAL. No, I've not been put off by the slower frame rate, the 60 FPS stuff. It does feel a teensy bit smoother to step up to the 100 or 120, but the type of flying I do doesn't ruin my day. What I do find is if I go up to 120 FPS, I'm getting a lot more compression, and I tend to run a lower FPS because I'd rather get less compression. On DJI, it's very obvious because that's kind of first generation digital, and it was great most of the time. And if you're in a beautiful sun-kissed meadow, you're out in California somewhere where rain is a legend that no one believes and the sun is out every day, then you've got no problem. The camera copes beautifully. If you're in England and it's January or December and the sky is a kind of pencil shaded leaden grey and there's mud everywhere, then DJI 100 FPS gives you just kind of a smooth soup-like finish over the brown ground where you can't make out any details. And for that reason, I tend to go down to 60 FPS so it gets less compressed. So there's slightly more detail in the ground and there's slightly more detail in the little branches that might whip out and catch me and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Long answer.
People are saying they notice it. Have to do some blind tests. So then again, if you concentrate, you can generally see it, can't you?
Yeah. There's also the Cadex Walnut that Andy RC was talking about a while ago. Kind of slowly slid out. It wasn't really a big bang release as much as a slow plop release, the Cadex Walnut. But it's been out for a while now. Long enough that it seems to be going through some discounts. I think I have heard on the grapevine that it's okay so long as you don't use the ultra wide field of view. So if you're doing like 2.7K, it's all right. But if you go to the full 4K, you get problems because the edge of the camera casing is visible through the lens a little bit. And especially if you're flying into bright light, then you get little bit visual artifacts. So a lot of the reviewers apparently have gone down to 2.7K to make it look a bit nicer. A lot of people seem to like 2.7K anyway, so whatever.
So wide angle you can see the inside of the camera.
Yeah, literally. That's the problem.
Crazy.
For the best.
Anyway, that's at 130. And I guess you get the battery and everything inside that. So it's more like a regular action camera. Whereas the thumb, you've got to mess around with connecting it to a 5-volt line or something.
Yeah, or just like get a balance connector for it, basically, and do that.
Nice and easy.
Curry, who did you report your Radio Master box ghost fitting issue to?
Well, it wasn't just the ghost. That was the problem. Again, back on the Tyro quad, that had an R9 in it. So I took the R9 receiver out. I converted it over to Express LRS. I updated my old R9 module over to 3.2. And then when I tried to take it out of the boxer, I was like, it's not coming out. The clips, I couldn't push them in hard enough to get them out. What I had to do in the end is unscrew the module, take the outside box out, and then the inner box has more flex, so I could actually take it out. So I asked them if they'd had any reports. I said the Ghost module's very, very tight, and other ones I can't get back out again without having to do extra stuff. So they asked me to send them a video, which I did. I showed them a video of me getting the Ghost. Basically, I pushed it, and I was like, I'm not going in the way with this because it was just too tight. And then I showed them the R9, and I was like, look, I can't get it out. So they're going to go away and look at it then. Hopefully they'll change the molding to the back. I think what they've got, looking at how it gets stuck, obviously it's a little bit small because that Ghost module's so tight, but they've got too much of a lip that holds, you've got the normal... With all these modules, you've got these little push-in things for the JR modules. Yep. And I think there's a lip that comes out too far, so you can't push it in hard enough to get the whole module back out again, because you need to flex beyond what it will do. Because as I said, if I take that bit out, the little rectangular plastic will flex a bit, and that way I can get it out. So I'm waiting to hear back to see what they're going to do about it. Hopefully something, though, because it's a really nice radio.
The lip slightly.
Yeah. Apart from the fact you can't get the modules out, and you can't get one of them.
Is it just the Ghost module, or every module you've tried?
It's every module. The Ghost is really, really tight for getting in. Everything else goes in okay, but it doesn't come out again.
Wow.
So that is a problem.
Hopefully they won't go the other way where modules just flop out, and then because that'll be the worst. Is if they
I can't believe they didn't test the mold though. That's weird.
It's weird because I tested it against the TX12, which is the radio they just had before that, and everything goes in and out perfect. The Ghost must be a little bit bigger than other modules because it was still a little tight, but it's still in and out, no problem.
That's
weird.
Nuts. It must just be fractions of a millimeter as well. It's a huge difference if you can actually get it in to start with.
Yeah, it's not much, but there's something different in it. They may have tested it with their own Ranger module, because the Ranger module, it's kind of the actual module piggybacks on the back of the little surround. So that will actually, I could just about get that out without too much hassle.
Because that's an external big boy.
Yeah, because it's in the back of something. It's literally you've got this little, almost this little surround, and then the module is like this brick on top of that. So because you've just got that kind of more flexible case, you can push these in hard enough to get it out. But on all other modules, you can't. I actually broke a FPV module trying to get it out. I broke the put it back on now. But I had screwdrivers going here. I broke the lip off one of these, trying to get a wedge under there whilst trying to put pressure on that one. It was like, bing, oh dear, broken it. And I smashed some of those together, trying to get something from the other side, pushing it. So it's quite a problem, I think, potentially.
Might have to get some white lithium grease in there to lube everything.
We'll have to do something. I'm sure if we took something apart, looked at it, like if you just had the surround, put it in there, you could probably tell what it was.
Maybe that was the point. You just weren't, the little dishes that Radio Master ship out with the lube in, that you were supposed to use it on the module as well as the gimbals. Maybe
that's it.
Just weren't paying attention. Maybe that was in the small print. Requires module lube.
I think it's going to take a little bit of modding, a little bit of sanding something away in there. Jack knows all about lube. Yes, indeed.
Sticky Jack's Glue Emporium, I think you'll find. But
I know.
Can also double as
We're
loot.
still looking for a logo. If anyone can do Sticky Jack's Glue Emporium, that would be fantastic. You've got Jack's beaming face here. We just need like a stylized version of that. I was thinking with a big thumbs up, like a kind of, maybe with a bit of glue just sort of coming off the thumb, just dribbling off the thumb. Jack's not sure about this.
I would ask my daughter, but last time I asked her for a logo, she said it would be like 300 quid or something. So I said, I don't think I'm going to pay that.
$5 or something instead. Jeez,
why would she charge you? You've given her the best years of your life.
I tried this argument, and apparently that doesn't work. And then she said,
She's
fill up
like,
my car with
best
petrol.
years.
Go out.
6 out of 10. 6 out of 10, Dad. That's it.
I know. Well, I was looking forward to maybe having an option to like move away from the tyrannous hell that I live in. There's nothing worse than two of them. I know, tyranni, and I'm just like, oh man.
It's like Stockholm syndrome with old hardware. Jack and his kit.
Yeah, I know.
He loves it because that's what he knows. Even if it hurts him.
It'd be nice to have something with built-in ELRS, and then I can use the module bay for the Ghost. But I have noticed.
Well, can you? You can hammer it in there.
Yeah, that's it. Put it in, never comes out. Why would you want to use anything else? Because like I'm not using Crossfire. That's still all in my planes, so who knows? All right, shall we call it there?
At least you've got a couple of radios and they're working. That's the main thing.
Yeah, that's it for now. Till Free Sky.
Just don't drop them. Don't drop them.
Be massive dicks about stuff. You know.
Try not to clean out any sheds of sheep shit with your radio.
I know, innit? All right, that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. But thank you to all our Patreons. You've been listening to Let's Drone Out. You've been enjoyed by everyone's favourite Kerry Kitten.
Goodbye.
The man with the terrible posture.
Stephen. It's better this way. I could just keep the shoulders stretched. Thanks, everyone.
And I've been Brighton to Life Lie. This show is sponsored by our lovely Patreons who keep it running. Editor, separate recordings. I bet you're loving life. Thank you guys. You guys are the best. Thank you to everyone who showed up and said hello. A few of those wonderful people who caught us live on the Thursday were Tailspin, Gusto, Flight One, Numbskull, Carl, Caroline, Make Me Lab, MK Me Lab. I don't know how you pronounce that. I'm sure
it's Make Me Lab.
Yeah,
Make Me Lab.
Load of Lines, Tailspin, Shady, all those cool people. Thank you guys, Cole, and my darling wife Tony. And what a static fire indeed. Thank you. Good night. Bye.